right. Hey guys, happy whatever day this is. Welcome to chapter 13. So while chapter 12 focused on non-renewable energy, we're going to be looking at a little bit more sustainable options in renewable energy, which I know we've talked about in class. The answer is sometimes not just converting everything to renewable energy. I don't think we have the infrastructure for that. And there are obviously some downsides to a lot of these renewable energy options. So maybe the correct answer is more on trying to find a balance between renewable and non-renewable, and also looking for ways in general to conserve that energy usage worldwide. Whew. All right, so what exactly is renewable energy? You guys know this, we've been talking about it in class. This is rapidly regenerated or limitless energy sources. So while with fossil fuels and a lot of our non-renewable energy sources, we are using them at a rate faster than they're able to actually replenish, renewable energy is something that is either constantly sustainable or it's something that can be replenished at the same rate that we're using it. So kind of just to shape, wow, I'm so sorry, my words are like not working at all. To shape what we're actually talking about, these are our non-renewable energy sources that we talked about last week. We're going to talk a little bit about biomass and biofuel today. These are what we would call potentially renewable, where if we allow time for regrowth and if we allow time to actually harvest land and really put in some good practices, these could be really good renewable options. And then our non-depletable ones, the wind, if everything goes well, the wind's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Hopefully the sun won't go anywhere anytime soon. Same thing with our ocean currents, and then obviously the heat from the magma, convection currents underground for geothermal energy. These are all non-depletable. As far as we know, they're not going away anytime soon. So again, we're really trying to figure out how can we use less energy. Sometimes, and honestly, I feel like across the board, whether you're renewable, non-renewable, we just want to use less. I mean, you guys were potentially around when February 2021, last year, at least for when I'm recording this video. Goodness gracious, the whole power grid shut down and a lot of people were out of power. We had rolling blackouts because we overwhelmed the system. The overall electrical grid was overwhelmed. So if we find ways to conserve energy, use less energy, that's going to be the ultimate goal. Okay, like every single one of these processes, renewable versus non-renewable, takes a lot of work, takes a lot of energy. So let's conserve that energy. If we use less, that's already helping a lot of the problem. If we can't conserve, or once we've already conserved, in addition to that, kind of second choice is we want to increase efficiency. We want to make sure we get as much energy, as much bang from the buck for a given amount of processes. This could sometimes mean converting to renewable energy, but it also could just be with our current processes, how can we make them more efficient and obtain more utilization from a particular process. All right, so if we're looking at light bulbs, sometimes we're looking for more efficient light bulbs. You've probably seen these different types of light bulbs. We have our incandescent, our compact fluorescent lamp, our CFLs, and we have our LED. I can't remember what LED stands for. I just know it's more eco-friendly. So generally speaking, if you've been to the grocery store or Home Depot or wherever, and you're like, oh, I'm going to try to buy some light bulbs, these incandescent bulbs are like stupid cheap. I just went to buy some Christmas lights, and when I say that it was like 800% more expensive to get the LED bulbs, that's kind of an exaggeration, but these LED bulbs tend to be a lot more expensive. But they're using a lot less watts. Remember that watts is a unit of energy. Watts are usually in terms of 1 hour. So this is a 12-hour watt for 1 hour, 14 watts per hour, and 60 watts per hour. So incandescent, cheaper, but holy cow, we're talking about a 500% more watt usage compared to the LED. So your actual electrical bill, when we're trying to figure out how much energy we're actually utilizing, our energy usage is going to be much more. So the yearly operating cost, insanely more. And it even has a shorter lifespan. So you're constantly having to replace these bad boys compared to our LED light bulbs. So this would be an example of we're trying to get to a more efficient system. Peak demand. So when you get to be a super fun adult and get to do super fun things like energy bills, you're going to be looking at peak demand. We're going to be looking at energy systems. So the peak demand is going to be the greatest quantity used at any given time. So for Texas, our peak demand, I think is about like 1 to 7 p.m. That's the period of time during the day when the most amount of energy in the state of Texas is being utilized. Let's think about that. That's the hottest time of the day. So our air conditioners in the summer, those things are cranked up, fans, you name it. In addition, a lot of people are coming home, so they're cooking dinner. That's going to be using energy. They're going to be getting things out of the fridge. Those fridge doors are opening. Maybe they're also doing laundry. I don't know about you guys. I don't do my laundry at 9 a.m. It's usually 3 p.m., even on the weekends. Running dishwashers after dinner. So this is the greatest amount of time that energy is using. You're also having to turn on lights as the sun goes down. So because of that, we're going to have different tiered systems that says that if you're using a certain amount of wattage, you're going to have a certain cost for your energy bill. And we have a tiered system, and we'll talk about this more later in class, but we have this tiered system to try to encourage people to use less energy, especially during the peak demand. Because if everyone's using electricity at this exact same time, we could eventually run out. It could overload the system. All righty, so what are some ways that we can reduce that energy? Again, we're always talking about how can we conserve energy. You can try to have a more sustainable home, insulating gaps so that your heat or AC, depending on what season of the year, is not escaping into the outside area. You can try to be more mindful about the air conditioner. Like yesterday, it was a beautiful day. So instead of turning on my AC when it got stuffy in my apartment, I just opened up a window and I got that nice natural breeze coming through. You can reduce using a hot water, which I love doing hot water, but it's technically, it takes a lot of energy to heat up that water. Walk or ride the bike for transportation. Look how full this iPod is. I don't remember when this photo was taken. Man, that's really old. We're going to be talking later in class about energy vampires, which are devices that continuously pull and drain energy, even when they're not turned on. So just being plugged in. So you could unplug devices when you're not using them. I'm always unplugging my toasters, and I'm always unplugging different things. It drives my roommate crazy, but that's okay. Our energy bill is lower. Again, we can try to make things more sustainable. If we're trying to make good choices when we're designing buildings or when we're designing spaces, we can reduce our energy usage from the very beginning, which is awesome. So let's look at an example of that. So this is a home. It's built very sustainably. This house is facing near the south. This is good because the sun tends to be more in the southern direction as for us in North America during winter time. So when it's winter time, the sun is going to be coming in from the south side, and we're getting more direct sunshine into all these windows in the front of the house. So it's actually good to build your home facing towards the south. That's going to really help you out in that winter because you're getting that passive solar heating as the sun arcs its way through the sky. You could also build trees around, plant trees around, or grow trees, or just build your house near a tree. That way you're getting some shade, reducing how much air conditioner you're going to have to run during that sun, oh my gosh, summertime. You can make sure you have lots of insulation, again, trapping in the heat or the AC, depending on what time of the year it is, insulating things. High efficiency, and you can also utilize smart grids, which we'll talk about at the very, very end of the video. I love this picture. So this is the California Academy of Science. It's in the Golden Gate Park of California in San Francisco. I've actually been to this building. If you're ever in San Francisco, if you like science, go to this building. It's like the coolest thing ever. It's a little thing, but it's so worth it. So this is an amazing building. And first of all, they got photovoltaic discs on top of the ceiling. So they're harnessing solar energy at the top. You've also noticed probably that there's grass on the roof. This is actually insulating and protecting from the sun's rays. So this saves on how much AC they have to do, because it actually is a lot cooler during the summertime than if they just had like a straight up roof. So they're preserving they're conserving how much they actually have to run the AC. There's also water collection units at the very top. And so they're actually collecting rainwater the few days that it rains in California, but they're actually collecting rainwater, and then they're either utilizing it in the facility, or they're taking that water and they're replenishing their aquifers and groundwater systems. They also have lots and lots of open windows. So they actually don't really run the lights very often. Everything is naturally lit by sunshine coming through the windows. Super, super sustainable design. Their electricity bill is like, it's probably expensive to make this, but you end up saving in the long run. So no matter what type of energy, renewable, non-renewable, a lot of it is originating from our sun. Thank goodness for the sun. Hopefully it sticks around with us for a while. Sorry, my face is in the way. So whether we're talking about fossil fuels or non-renewable energy sources, remember that a lot of these are organic deposits. Our coal is very concentrated carbon molecules. Our petroleum, we're talking about fossilized remains of different photosynthetic animals or organisms. But when we're even talking about renewable energy, these are also going to be coming from the sun, solar, the wind and hydroelectric. You might not think about coming from the sun, but if you think about it, think all the way back to when we talked about wind currents and oscillations around the whole world. When we're talking about the convection currents, think about, remember, warm air rises, cool air sinks. So even wind and all the currents that go through our atmosphere globally, this is all coming from the sun and how it heats different parts at different parts of the day. I feel like you guys can all read this. These are things that are from our biomasses and biofuels. We'll be talking about those, I think, next. There are a couple that are not really sun related. So nuclear reactions, when we're talking about uranium-235, like that doesn't really have anything to do with the sun. Tidals can be more towards the moon, so also not sun related. Though if you think about the sun being the center of gravity, that's a stretch. Anyways, I feel like you can read the chart. Oh, ha ha ha. Alternative energy drinks. Okay, biomass versus biofuels. Those two tend to get pretty mixed up every once in a while. So I wanted to make sure we were clear. Biomass is an umbrella term. This includes biofuels. Biomass is pretty much anything that's organic that's going to be providing fuel in some way. So if you are really cold outside and you want to start a fire and you burn wood, that could be an example of biomass. When we are taking MSW, which is municipal solid waste, coming from our wastewater treatment plants and actually burning that in terms of energy, sure, that doesn't smell great, but it's a source of energy, that's going to be biomass. Biomass includes biofuels. Oh, I'm so sorry that there's no closing parentheses. That annoys me. Sorry. Biofuels is a subcategory of biomass. And this is when we take biomass and we refine it and we process it to turn it into a liquid source of fuel. So when I take corn and I actually take the corn stalks and then turn it into ethanol, or I take the sugars and convert it into a source of energy that is liquid, such as gasoline or biodiesel, that's going to be biofuels. Again, this is a liquid refined version of a particular type of biomass. This is usually corn. I know they're also doing a type of grass. I forgot, I think it's called stillgrass. I can't remember what exactly it is. I can put it in the notes somewhere. But we're looking at other ways of creating this biofuels. So someone's like, I remember somebody once, or maybe it was in the textbook, I don't remember, but people are like, well, we're still burning biomass. So we're still releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. How is this better? You are correct, whoever you are. Biomass is releasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Absolutely. We're literally taking organic things. All organic things contain carbon. That's like the definition of life. Well, hold on, being organic. Sorry, if it's living its cells. Anyways, but if we think about it, this is carbon dioxide that has been recently in our atmosphere. So if I'm, let's say, burning a piece of wood or something, and that's a form of biomass, when I'm burning that piece of wood, this is wood from a tree that's probably been grown within the past 100 years, 400 years, is like a really, really old tree. Whereas when we're burning coal, one of our non-renewable fossil fuels, this has been buried for millions of years, or at least hundreds of thousands of years. And so this is something that has not been in our atmosphere for many, many times. It's been out of circulation. And so we're ending up adding more overall carbon dioxide when we're burning coal, fossil carbon, our fossil fuels, versus our biomass. So yes, both are adding in carbon, but one of them is adding in carbon that was only recently taken out. So it's still kind of part of the same overall circulation, growing and like taking out carbon and adding it back in. Burning fossil fuels is essentially just adding in more because it hasn't been in our circulation for so long. Sustainable? Yes and no. I feel like these are the ones that are potentially renewable. So when we're talking about biomass, if I am removing more timber then I'm able to regrow that timber, then no, it's not sustainable. We have a net loss of that timber. So even you could consider it like it has the potential to be renewable, but if we have a net removal or an overall loss of timber, then this is an unsustainable practice. we could make this sustainable if we allow enough time for the timber to replenish itself. But then we're gonna, I mean, that's not gonna power the whole world. So you would have to then rely on other forms of energy. So potentially, not quite there yet, but it could have the potential to be sustainable and renewable. For ethanol, in terms of biofuels, there is quite a bit of fossil fuels required. I mean, think about agriculture. When we're talking about commercial agriculture, remember corn, that's ethanol, right? All the machinery that we need, all the tractors and all the farming equipment needed to actually harvest the corn, those are all producing, you know, greenhouse gases. Those are all producing air pollutants. So, and you have to then fuel them usually with fossil fuels themselves. So yes, we're creating an alternative to fossil fuels, but we're using fossil fuels to do that. Also the land usage required for the corn. So there are some concerns. We're trying to find some alternative answers. I know algae's been looked into, and other chlorophoric, photosynthetic microorganisms could be a new alternative for looking into these biofuels that wouldn't require as much land or fossil fuels to harvest. All right, moving along to hydroelectricity. So think about our Three Gorges Dam. What a dam. Hydroelectricity is another form of energy. This one is going to be essentially, there's two different types of hydroelectricity or our dams. There are our reservoir dams, which is pictured here. See that the reservoir. This is when we have the huge disparity between the behind the dam and beyond the dam. It's good to have the reservoir engineeringly, sorry, or physical, my words are not working today. Please have patience with me, because when we have this disparity, we have this bank essentially of water. It's a very reliable source of energy, because you're not going to just like, the river's not going to run dry if you have so much built up. So we have this intake that flows through. It's going to power a turbine similar to the coal power plants that we talked about in chapter 12. The water flowing through is going to pour in the turbine. The turbine is going to power the generator. The generator is going to create electricity. Fantastic. Not great all the time. Think about the Three Gorges Dam, right? The Three Gorges Dam, when we did that reading earlier on, because you have so much water, you can't really release it at a certain rate. And so sometimes you'll get flooding upstream. I know that said that there's like all these beautiful historic sites that are being flooded in China because of this Three Gorges Dam and that huge reservoir of water behind it. Oops, I gotta go. There's other ones called Run of the River. Run of the River, both sides of the dam are pretty equal, but you don't have the reliable. So if the river runs dry on one side, then you're not getting that flow of water. So it's less reliable. I'll be back. All right, let's keep going. I'm on this side of the screen now. Woo! All right, so we've just finished up talking about hydroelectric energy. We're going to move on now to solar energy, which is another type of renewable energy resource. This is one that's non-depletable. Hopefully, as long as the sun is still kicking. We're going to look at active solar energy, but you may remember from your energy speed dating activity that there's also passive solar energy as well. So pictured here is actually like a really cool thing. I mean, it's not perfect because it does require quite a bit of land and quite a bit of expenses to get it going. But this is what we call a CST, a concentrating solar thermal power plant. It's a mouthful, alphabet soup. But essentially, all of these down here are reflectors, and they're going to capture the sun's radiation and the sun's light waves, reflect them onto this central power here. It's insanely bright. Like I drove past, I don't know if it was this one, but there's one in the Mojave Desert that I drove by, and it was like, it's so bright, but they reflect all the sun's light there. The sun's rays are then going to, I mean, you guys know the drill. It's going to heat up some water. The water is going to release steam. The steam is going to turn the generator. That's going to turn the turbine, turn the generator. That's going to eventually generate electricity. So these are all reflecting light onto a central point. You might also have seen solar panel farms where there's just rows upon rows upon rows of solar panels. These are all active solar energy because we're capturing it, and then we're actually generating electricity. Because we're producing electricity and we're going through some sort of mechanical process, that's why this is an active process. Oh, sorry. Okay, hold on to that because we got a joke because I was just talking about active processes. So anyways, I used to be addicted to showering, to not showering. Luckily, I've been clean for 5 years. Okay, so Photovoltaic cells is what we usually think of when we think of this active solar energy. So again, it's active because we're taking the sun, going through some sort of mechanical processes to actually convert it into electricity. I'm going to go over here now. So photovoltaic cells is fancy talk for solar panels. Solar panels are made up of a series of photovoltaic or PV cells. These PV cells essentially are going to be taking the sunlight and going through some cool processes that I'm not going to bore you guys with right now, but it's going to actually take that sunlight and convert it into usable electricity. Usually these are going to be directly supplying a house. So what it's going to go and supply, for like the air conditioning, the refrigerator, this will be our main power supply. But there are some instances where the excess actually gets sent over to energy companies, and they're going to be imported, especially during those peak hours when everybody's using it, 1 to 7 for Texas. And you actually get some dinero, or you get some electrical credits. So cool. Oh, I got to go over here again. In contrast, passive solar energy, we're not generating electricity. Active, we generate electricity. Passive, we're just using the radiation lights, but we're not converting them into something else. We're just using them as is. So solar cookers is a huge way, or a huge example of passive solar energy. We're taking the reflections of the sun's rays and reflecting it into a point to radiate or cook an area. You can also think about it as just straight up like building your house. Remember, we talked earlier about sustainable design. You can build your house to be south facing so that when it's in wintertime and the sun is at a lower part of the horizon, you're getting more direct sun rays if you are south facing in the northern hemisphere during the wintertime. So that is a way that we're utilizing solar energy to heat or create radiation in an area that otherwise you wouldn't have. So this again is passive solar ovens and building houses in a particular way. Oh my gosh, I'm just moving and grooving. We're going to keep going. Geothermal is one of our processes. This one and tidal energy are our two main ones that are sun dependent. No, sun independent. They do not need the sun. Geothermal, this is happening whether the sun shines or not. I guess you could argue that. But anyways, this is going to be when we're taking some sort of heat from down below. It could be the radioactive decay of metals. That's critical. Remember that. I should have put it on the slide, so my bad. Radioactive decay from metals underground the Earth's surface, in usually the mantle areas, maybe where that happens, but also in the mantle area when we've got hot magma moving around. Remember, convection currents, that's what's moving our tectonic plates. The magma that's going through those convection currents, we can actually, when the heat comes up close enough to the surface, it can actually transfer that heat to somewhere where we can actually utilize it, and that gets squished by magma. So right here, we have one of these processes. I'm blanking on the name of it. Ground source heat pump. Ground source heat pump, that's what it's called. Sorry about that, guys. So cold air or cold water sinks, warm air rises is essentially what happens. So I have warm air coming up from the geothermal underground area. As this hot water comes up, it's going to exchange that heat in the heat exchanger. That's going to be powering and sending off electricity. After it's released and generated electricity via its heat, it's going to go through an expansion valve. The expansion valve is going to increase the volume of the particles. Increasing volume is going to decrease the kinetic energy, the speed of those particles, decreasing their overall temperature. So it cools down the particles as we expand the area there. These cooler particles are now going to shoot down because cold air sinks or cold water sinks, and then it gets reheated and it keeps on going in that. Pretty cool stuff. Not extremely, but pretty dang expensive to implement. But you've got like a limitless supply of energy if you can get this set up, and it's extremely sustainable. All right, wind energy, another one of our non-renewable, non-depletable ones. This one does rely on the sun because remember, wind is caused by uneven atmospheric currents because we have uneven heating of the Earth's surface. I'm not going to talk too much on this one. I feel like of all the renewable energy sources, this is probably one that you know the most of, but essentially very similar to everything else. we have some sort of mechanical energy being converted into electrical energy. Like if there's one thing you know from this unit, mechanical energy turns into electrical energy for like most of these processes. So in this one, the wind blades are going to be turned by the force of the wind. That mechanical action is going to go into the gearbox, which will go to the generator and actually transfer the electricity down. What is really, really cool is that there's also motorized drive. And so depending on which way the wind is blowing, these wind turbines can actually move from side to side to find the most efficient and effective way of actually harnessing the power of the wind, which is fantastic. Just for scale, that's a building. Sometimes when we see these, we're like, oh, cute little pinwheels. No. These things are massive. You've probably seen some of the blades go by you on the highway and they take up like 5 car lanes. Okay, I think, yeah, this is the last one. Last one. Hydrogen fuel cells and fuel cells in general. Is this a new opportunity? This is one of our newer emerging technologies. They're essentially centered on the idea of a battery, where we're creating energy from reactions. So in a fuel cell, we're going to be having some sort of chemical reaction that's occurring. The chemical reaction is going to be releasing heat as a byproduct or energy as a byproduct. We harness that energy and it's going to power something. The one that your book really goes into, and we use in our energy speed dating, is our hydrogen fuel cells. Our hydrogen fuel cells occur when we take hydrogen gas, H2, react it with oxygen gas, O2, we create water molecules, and then it's also going to be releasing, is it H2 or is it maybe just H? We'll find out on the next slide. But it's going to be releasing water and also producing heat. Very efficient system. I mean, yes, water vapor is a greenhouse gas, but we're not really producing any fossil fuels in the actual reaction itself. We're just releasing water as a byproduct. We could probably use more water. However, there is quite a bit of fossil fuels required to actually harvest the hydrogen. Hydrogen occurs extremely rarely naturally in our atmosphere. And so we have to find a way to harness or create and sculpt that hydrogen. And usually the machinery and the mechanisms to do that do require machinery and quite a bit of fossil fuels to power those. So it's like, yay, we're saving on fossil fuels by spending fossil fuels to get it. So it really kind of balances out. We got to find a better way to make it before this becomes a more sustainable option. Additionally, high pressure hydrogen tanks back of your car. That could be very explosive. So there's quite a bit of danger with that. I mean, look at that. Look at those tanks. I would be a little freaked out, to be honest. But I mean, if you can make it really safe, then maybe I will get in the car. All right, so we got our hydrogen gas with our oxygen. The hydrogens are going to be split into protons and electrons. The electrons are going to be used to help generate the electricity. The protons fuel that water. So we are going to be releasing that water. And in the process, we're also be obtaining electricity to fuel that electric current. All right. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. There's last one, but this is more of just kind of like a summary. Smart grids is a new technology. I know President Barack Obama was really getting into these. I hope that to see more of these because I feel like they could be really idea. We've talked a lot about the key part of all of this, whether we're going renewable or non-renewable, is we want to conserve our energy usage so we don't have massive power outages and massive overloads of the whole system. Smart grids are supposed to help with that. So we'll hope to see more about that. But smart grids essentially are going to be constantly analyzing energy consumption, not only in your house, but also the overall city and electrical systems usage as well. And will not perfectly, but will more accurately and efficiently time energy usage based on the current demands of the system. For example, you could say, I want the dishwasher to run tonight, smart meter. And then the smart meter will say, okay, I'm going to sense the energy system of the whole neighborhood. And when I feel a low, that's when I'm going to start the energy, I'm going to start the dishwasher. So it essentially cues a lot of things and has a lot of things occur when we don't have those peak hours. So maybe when you're away at work or when you're asleep. I'm sure you would also be able to then monitor, say like, I don't want this to go off at 3 in the morning, but anyways, it's just supposed to help balance out our energy usage so we don't overload that system. Here's a little summary. My words are failing me now. It's the end of the day. If you want to take a little screenshot of this, these are all of our renewable energy things that we have talked about. And I guess non-renewable too. Riddle time. How can you make 6 into an odd number? Find out in class. I hope you guys have a super fantastic day. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'm sorry that I was a mess, but it's great to see you guys. See you in class. Bye.